So this week, Ash and I were watching a TV show called Landman. And Ash sends her love. She's still under the weather, still has a fever, but it's low grade now. She's definitely getting better. Wishes she was here and just wanted to make sure I told you all she loves you very much and wishes she was here. So I'm watching this show Landman, and there's a scene in it where the daughter looks at her dad and says, "How come you're so wise?" And the dad says, "Because I've done so many things wrong in my life and learned the lesson." And I thought to myself, yeah, that's right. I have done so many things wrong in my life and learned the lesson. I mean, we're talking 97 jobs, 3 ex-wives, 2 ex-fiancés. I mean, it goes on. The list of things that I did wrong, right? And what I noticed about all that was that I've gotten very comfortable with being wrong. And in so being, it has allowed me to learn the lesson rather than be defensive. Rather than go, I'm not wrong, right? Make a stand for being right when I'm wrong. And I tend to speak with authority. I don't know if you've noticed, but I tend to speak with authority. This isn't something I've learned. I've always been this way. When I was 21, I was in an organization called Actualizations. I'd done a lot of their beginning workshops, and I was finally in this advanced workshop, and there were about 25 to 30 of us in there, and we did some exercise where after the exercise, they gave feedback to each of us. We all got feedback around it, and the first 15 people to give me feedback said, "He's such a space cadet." and then the workshop leader goes, "Actually, he's more like a space general because you all followed him." So I have been this way authoritative, and it drives my wife and kid crazy because I'll be very authoritative about something, and then they'll come with me with proof that I'm wrong, and I'll go, "Okay." And they go, "What do you mean, okay? Aren't you at least going to argue for what you were so authoritative about?" And I'm like, "No, I'm wrong. I'm good with that. I'm good with being wrong." When you're good with being wrong, you really get to learn. If you defend being wrong, what did you learn? What did you learn? And so standing up for it's okay to be wrong, getting really comfortable with that. I think it was last year, almost a year ago now, I announced that I don't experience shame anymore. And I think now looking back on it, this has really been the path that has led to that. I'm not ashamed to be wrong. It doesn't upset me at all. I'm really very comfortable with it. And it makes making decisions really easy because right or wrong, I'm making the decision. If I'm wrong, okay, we'll fix it. That's okay. If I'm wrong, let's learn from that and move forward. But I know lots of folks who if they are told they are wrong, they're like, "What do you mean I'm wrong?" And make this whole big stance about why they're right, or are ready to blame somebody else. It wasn't me that was wrong. I got that information from them. Or am I the only one who's ever done that? Right? It's so there's lots of ways in which we get in the way of ourselves to learn. When I notice that's been what my life's been about, just learning. And I've learned all these lessons and learned the lessons because I was wrong. Every time I said to myself, "This is it. I got this now. I know it. I was wrong." Right? And the more we are willing to be comfortable in being wrong, the more we get to experience the fullness of whatever possibility is next. If we're so darn sure we got it, we don't get to have that. And it can be embarrassing. It can be hard. I was very lucky at a young age, somewhere in my 20s, I was in a meeting where this guy got up, this architect got up, and said that he had designed the Citicorp. He was the architect engineer for the Citicorp building in New York City. That I think it's 60 stories. And when they got to about the 58th floor, he realized his math was wrong and that the building might fall. And so he could have easily, he said, blamed it on somebody else, said, oh, well, it was their math. But or just let it go and hope for the best. Instead, he stood up, said, I did this, it's my mistake, this is what we need to do to fix it. It cost over $2 million, and this is back in I think the 70s, where $2 million was $2 million. Not that it wouldn't, I'd love to have $2 million now. I'm not saying that. And he was, for a while he was knocked out of the business. Nobody wanted to work with him. And what he said is because he stuck with his integrity around that, there were people who understood that and actually admired him for it. And he became a hero in the architect community from this gigantic mistake that he was willing to cop to. And so whenever I start thinking, and I got to hear him speak when I was in my early 20s, so I've had a long time to sit with the idea that my mistakes aren't that big. And which made it a lot easier to get comfortable with it, right? Your mistakes probably aren't that big. And if they are, great, that means you're playing that big a game, right? Which was his other part of the message. He says, if you're going to play this large a game, then expect to make this larger mistake. How big are you willing to play? So much of our anxiety is from being so scared of being wrong, making a mistake, not getting it right. Instead of just relaxing in the fact you're not always gonna get it right. It's okay. That's how you learn. That's how you learn. That's how we grow. Now, the reason I got into this whole line of inquiry for myself this week and why I'm talking about it today is because of what happened on Monday. On Monday, I had in my calendar that I was meeting Dell at 1 o'clock at Second Cup. Unbeknownst to me, she had in her calendar that we were meeting at 3. So I'm over there at 1 o'clock waiting for a woman who is always early, always energetic, who had just the day before told me how important this meeting was to her that we got together, and by 1:30, she's not there, and I'm getting concerned. And I call the number I have, and unbeknownst to me, it's a home number, not her cell number. So I go over to her apartment, knock on her door, no answer. Now I'm really concerned. So I call the police. I didn't know what else to do. They come over and they break down her door. And sitting right there is her calendar book that says Cliff at 3. was wrong. Oh, man. So I'm sitting there waiting for Dell to come back because we finally did reach somebody, and her Rolodex is there, so we call a few people and we find out there was somebody in the building who had a key to her apartment. And, of course, she did have a cell phone. Call her up on her cell phone. She's at Second Cup wondering why I'm not there. Well, that's because I'm at your house breaking down your door. This was Monday. So Dell comes home, walks into this busted door, and there are 3 cops standing around who waited with me. And her response was astounding. She's like, "It's okay. No big deal." And the cops were all looking at each other going, "No big deal." Oh my God. So they give her all the information about how she can, get, it turns out that if the city busts down your door, they pay to put it back. Which is one of the things that makes Edmonton one of the greatest cities in the world. And then we had a wonderful time together, and she wasn't upset at all. And I'm like, oh my God, she's got this down better than I do. She's my hero. Calls me the next day to say she's already got it repaired and they're going to come and replace it and everything's fine. I'm like, holy cow, that's what I'm talking about. When we can sit in that, that's the beauty of it, We're always at choice. And if we get paralyzed, if I had been paralyzed, I don't do that. And if I make a mistake, I told her I'd take care of the door. Until the city said they'd pay for it. I thought, that's killer. But this is what, this is what we're all dealing with all the time, is we make mistakes. Right? Life goes on. How are we with that? And then sometimes we make mistakes and the other person's really flipping out. Dale could have walked in and really flipped out about her door being busted and what was going to happen next. It was wonderful that she didn't. But let's say you're with somebody and they're flipping out. Well, then look to see what you can do to make amends. That's all. You can't do more than make amends for your mistakes. And if the lesson you take away is, I should have been more careful, I should have taken more time, I should have taken more care, there is never enough data to make it that you'll never be wrong. Never will there be enough data, for information for you to gather, so that you will never be wrong. It ain't going to happen. So given that, how do you relax into and not have the anxiety? Remember, what we teach here is practices for joy-filled lives. That's our mission. That's what we do here. And there's nothing joy-filled around anxiety, around getting crazy about, I got to get this right. The whole thing is to relax into the adventure of life. Dell and I, we had a great time when we got together. It was an adventure. And even the policeman who was there, he says, well, at 94, you've never had this happen I can think of better milestones, but okay. Life is a matter of surprise and wonder. I mean, I was in awe of how Del was about that. I got to experience awe in the midst of being wrong, in the midst of making a mistake. I mean, it's always there for us. The awe, the wonder, and the learning. The learning. How to be at ease with yourself. Do you know? When I was, I made 2 huge blunders in the music business when I was in. The first, which one came first? I remember. The first one was I had written this song and was approached by the largest publishing company in the world at the time saying they wanted that song. They pulled me into their office, they sat me down, they were really after this song. And my stance was, no, I have to record it. And so they let it go. And that song never got recorded. I mean, it did by me, but I mean, it's just sitting on a shelf. It was a big mistake. And then, when Paul Simon's management company signed me, they said, we love your songs, but we want to put a different front person in front of your band. And I said, no. And so they just dropped me. We make these mistakes. And I look at those mistakes, and I learn from them, and I see where I am now in my life, and I learn from that. One of the things, there's this song by Eminem, right? You got one shot, one opportunity. It's not true. One of the greatest lessons I have learned is that opportunities continue. It's up to us to be open to them. You make a mistake, you're wrong, learn from it. There will be another opportunity unless you believe there won't. Right? Being wrong can teach you so much about life. So it's taught me so much. I was thinking about some of the greatest lessons that I've learned through being wrong, through all those times, all those jobs. Here's one. Reacting to a situation is still being in the situation. It's just the other side of the coin. You haven't moved on from that situation. You haven't transformed it. You haven't grown from it if you're in any way in reaction to it. This is a lesson because I've spent so much of my life in reaction. I wasn't the guy, I've told you this before, who got along with people. I was the guy who was always in rebellion and thinking that was me being authentic, when in fact it was simply being the other side of the coin. Just being in reaction. I wasn't any more authentic than the people who were trying so hard to get along. I was wrong, because I thought being in rebellion was the way to be authentic. And here's the thing I've learned about authenticity, that the more you're authentic, the more you attract people to you who appreciate your authenticity. But, here's the but. The valley you got to go through is very individualized. The valley you got to go through to find your authenticity, what has to happen in terms of people falling away, things that look so good disappearing. Who knows for you what that will be like? I only know what it's been like for me, and I've watched others who've gone down this path, and everybody's path is different. But I do know that if you are willing to take that walk, if you are willing to go through all the parts of it that do not feel great, on the other side of all those wrong decisions, finding your true authenticity is your tribe, is your people, like I have found with you. The reason I can say you can get through to the other side is because I did. And now I get to be here with you. I get to be married to a woman who I adore and who adores me. I get to have this because I keep digging into my own authenticity, who I really am. And like one of my first teachers used to say, Robert Fritz, tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. It's not easy to do that when you don't know. Whoa, all of a sudden there's a little bit of a ring. When you don't know how they're going to fall. The other thing I've learned is the more comfortable you are with the unknown, the better your opportunities for success. Trying to stick with just what you know, trying to stick with what you think you know, or calculate you know, is the best way to cut off possibilities that are there that you cannot yet see because they're so in the unknown. Being wrong, being comfortable with being wrong is an incredible gift. We're teaching this class here, Tammy's teaching this class here called it's not called the Power of Decision anymore, that's what it used to be called. Powering your decision. It's a great way to get more comfortable with being wrong. I highly recommend that class because it will teach you to relax into the decisions that are right, even when they're wrong. Because any decision you make, this is something else I've learned, every decision I've made, whether it looked good, bad, ugly, or whatever, has moved me to where I am now, which makes it not only good, but learning. Instead of thinking of decisions as good or bad, or right or wrong, think of them as they worked or learning. That decision worked, or it's learning. And that's it, because the learning leads to worked. The learning leads to work. There's nothing more powerful in this world than for us as human beings than our ability to learn. That's why these classes are so great, because they're the learning. That's why so many of our practitioners, even though they're already practitioners and don't have to take classes, keep taking classes anyway. Because the learning never stops. It continues on and on. And the biggest wrong decision I ever made was thinking that it doesn't. Was thinking, now I know this. Boy, was I wrong. I remember when I was the music director in Asheville, and I was not yet a practitioner. But I was put in charge of the lyrics that were spoken from the stage, and my job was to make sure that those lyrics were always in line with our teaching. And the minister, the spiritual leader down there, both of them were like, you're doing a great job. You obviously understand our teaching because everything being sung from the stage is right in line with the teaching. I thought I had it down. And then I started taking the practitioner training. And I realized I didn't understand this at all. But now I have it down. And then I went to ministerial school. And then I realized I didn't understand this at all. But now I have it down. and know. It continues. I continue to study. I continue to practice. I continue to learn every single week. That's my favorite part of what I bring you folks, is what I learned this week. Because that's how it works if we just keep learning. Be lifelong learners, not just by studying a book, but by willing to make wrong decisions. By willing to just be wrong. I'm to the point now where sometimes I get blamed for stuff that I had nothing to do with, and I'll go, yeah, that was me, I'm bad. I do that all the time. I don't care. There's still something to learn there. So why not? That's the model I want to be. Right or wrong, I don't care. I'm here to learn. And because of that, we grow. As we learn, we grow. That's the only thing that matters, not whether I'm right or wrong or who's to blame or what is this. Just how do we learn? What do we do now? If you can cultivate that and be comfortable with that, imagine how freeing that is for you. To not be stuck in, oh my God, I need to get this right. But to be free of, I'm going to learn however this goes. That's what's possible. And that's the beauty of what we have here. Thank you. I love you.